Welcome back. The realestateexperts.com real estate show. Brian and Mackenzie Crabtree and the Crabtree team happy to help you if you are considering a buy or a sale of a home, investment property, piece of land, commercial building anywhere in Metro Atlanta. And if it's anywhere else in the country, we can refer you to someone that's smart and competent and has great judgment anywhere in the country. So just go to therealestateexperts.com, reach out to us. We're happy to help either answer a question, have you make a decision that favors buying or not buying, or selling or not selling a house, or absolutely helping you prepare and sell a home. We've had many sales this year that we took from marketing on the radio show or from packages or mailers that we sent out where people had their home listed. The prior agent or two had failed, and we sold the home in days or weeks compared to months on the market and almost no showings in some cases by other agents. A lot of times it's marketing technique, not just marketing. How do we present the home that can really trigger a difference in the results and the actual bottom line you get for the house? So therealestateexperts.com. 2019's most and least stressed cities in America from Wallet Hub. They do this every year. And, you know, these things I think are good guides. If you see a city show up positively, and I'll give you an example of one that I know a lot about that shows up at the top of a lot of these lists, except education, and that's Charleston, South Carolina. There's two reasons for that. If you are looking at South Carolina on paper, from a standpoint of beach, lifestyle, waterway, traffic, cost of living, proximity to things in terms of America and access to major airports and ports and things of that nature. Charleston, South Carolina does fairly well for those reasons because it's all in a favorable approach. It's also a very hot spot for people who moved to Florida, decided they didn't like that lifestyle, want a little bit more seasons, and they do what we call halfback. They have a whole population of halfbacks that move halfway back to New Jersey from Florida and land in Charleston. That makes Charleston sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on what side you're on of that equation. But the other reason Charleston and cities like it show up so high at times on many of these lists is they have a really well-heeled, active PR department in their Chamber of Commerce or in their city's PR department, if you will, PR division, so public relations, and they spin the data. So yeah, you can't always look at this stuff and say it's all valid, and just because one city in America comes up high or low means it would or wouldn't be right for me. But I do think it's interesting to read the reasons. So the most stressed cities in America, let's read those off. These all have a common thread. I'm going to read the top 8. Detroit, Cleveland, Newark, New Jersey, Baltimore, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Birmingham. Now, no offense to anyone from these areas. This is just my opinion. Doesn't have to be yours, but maybe should be. Just kidding. Those 8 cities have one thing in common. They all suck. Okay? I mean, I would, if someone called and said, hey, we're going to give you $1 million, come move up to Detroit and help us with it, it would have to be a short-term assignment. The cities have an immense amount of poverty. They have a higher rate of crime. They have a low rate of upward mobility. They have major health problems out of cultural issues or whatever. And they have a lot of flux and unpredictability. The politics of the cities, they're unstable. And they're not really that attractive for businesses due to the education status and labor in the market. So those cities are highly stressful for people that live there. I did a segment on radio 2 or 3 years ago that was called If You Don't Like It, Move. And what has always amazed me about the culture of America is people are born in the hood, in the city, in the country, in the trailer park, or in the state, or in the city, specifically in an area. I was born in downtown Atlanta, or I was born in downtown Birmingham, or wherever it is, and that's where my people are, my family is, whatever applies. And these folks, they stay there with some sort of false sense of pride to their area that they'd be a traitor if they left. And I see it much differently. If you're not living up to the potential that you believe you could live up to the level of your capacity, and you believe that the area you in is not ripe with opportunity, move. Leave. I can tell you what I saw in the wonderful city called Charleston, South Carolina for 17 years, most of which I did real estate. And I became the get me the hell out of here agent, meaning that people in Charleston who connected to me didn't particularly like Charleston. They had moved there to work for Boeing or for some pharmaceutical company or in the medical profession. They were highly educated, intelligent people with great jobs. And they felt like the city was holding them back to their potential, even though they were well into the 6 figures, lived on the water, lived in great houses, went to pretty good schools and all that. They didn't feel like they were going to live up to their potential there because of the the acumen or the, I don't know, the culture of the market. I hate using the word culture because that means so many different things, but people were just small-minded there, and it holds people back. So those people were smart enough to say, I need to move on to a place that gives my family greater opportunity, because if I'm the most successful I can be, I can then empower my children more to start off more successfully and to continue the legacy of success. Now, that requires discipline and being a good parent to keep that going instead of having them turn into some other kind of a problem child. But it does mean that they're thinking forward and going, I can do the best for my family, the legacy, and the best putting back into a community if I go somewhere that is the best opportunity for me. So we have a lot of the stress in the country because a lot of people don't recognize this ain't the place for me. I need to move on. Sometimes because of the poverty they face, they're afraid to move. They've got a network of support here, even in poverty, that they wouldn't have elsewhere, but they don't ever get to break free of those chains and see what they can really do. That then creates stress, and it creates a multi-generational poverty and stressful environment as a family. Now, let's look at some of the places. By the way, Atlanta, Georgia is in the top 40 of, I don't know, they did about 400 cities here. Right next to Fort Smith, Arkansas, Las Vegas, Nevada, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. I'm a little bothered that we came in right there with Columbia, South Carolina. I know a lot of great folks in Columbia, South Carolina, and I certainly am not judging them by saying this, but Columbia, South Carolina is one of the least favorite places I've ever been in the world. It's a boring city. It has very little to offer, and it just sort of is like, well, blah on a good day. So I don't see Atlanta as being that. I don't see Atlanta as being any of those things. Some people may feel that way, but the reasons Atlanta falls fairly high in this category. It's more lower on others. It's 91 when you get into some of the economic standards that are possible in Atlanta. But we get low on the list when it comes to health. So to be fair to Atlanta, if you took health out and you said, if I'm a healthy person who doesn't partake in the fried chicken environment of, nothing wrong with fried chicken, by the way, but if I don't take part in the fried chicken environment side of Atlanta, then we're really about 75, kind of middle of the road. So that's not bad for a big old city with a lot of poverty. But when you add the health factor in, what it's saying in this estimation, and I think it's true, we don't eat so good here, right? So that's the part that really drags Atlanta down. Charleston, South Carolina was way on down the list in terms of everything, which I find amazing because the one thing that really drug it down was health as well. Take the health factor out of Charleston, which is more of a southern problem, and it would be one of the top cities on the list. So the health factor is a big part of stress, most or least. Poverty is the major contributor to it, and of course, upward mobility. Atlanta has a lot of upward mobility, but it also has a lot of people stuck in poverty, so it has a double-edged sword at the same time. Thought that was an interesting article from Wallet Hub. I recently went over to Iberia Bank, which I'd heard some good things about. I know a couple of mortgage people there, have nothing against them, and I tried to open a checking account because I'm kind of a wayward soul when it comes to banking right now. I wouldn't do business with Bank of America. I'd favor under the mattress or in the safe before I would do business with them, just based on my personal experiences. I'm not judging anyone who does. Wells Fargo was really off-putting to me a few years ago, and then watching what they did to our servicemen for closing on and repossessing cars and houses, for which they paid dearly in fines while they were overseas dying or getting maimed for our country, was kind of a non-starter for me. It showed a culture of cheating at the bank that I don't know if it's been fixed yet or not. I hear that it has, but I'm not sure whether I believe it or not. Citibank, I've watched them continue to operate as almost, if it's still the financial crisis, as an incompetent institution and how they've treated people. And I just generally don't like them, which leaves on the big bank front banks like Chase, SunTrust, BB&T, Synovus, and the etc. So I decided, let me try medium-sized regional bank, Iberia Bank. I applied for a checking account for our business to include our escrow account and operating account. And because of the way the registrations work on our multi-state brokerage, thank you for your recent online application for a new deposit account at Iberia Bank. We appreciate your interest in banking with us. Unfortunately, after careful review, we will be unable to proceed with the account opening process online at this time because we are not currently able to open accounts for individuals or businesses with locations 60 miles or more from the nearest branch. Now, mind you, I gave them an Atlanta address on an LLC based in South Carolina and in Montana. So, and I have an LLC in Georgia as well. We didn't get there because nobody thinks anymore. Nobody actually thinks in the banking world. And this is mainly because of the meddling by the federal government to try to right the wrongs of the financial crash and the financial crisis and all of the fraud that's happened. And so banks now have become untenable to deal with. That's why more and more people in the poverty ranks are going unbanked. They do not have a bank account. They spend massive amounts of money on fees for money orders and Western Union, the fastest way to send money or whatever. And they don't have a bank account because the banks are so, well, there's a YouTube video out there, I think puts it correctly, because banks suck. And what's happening now is the banks like SunTrust and BB&T, both of which in their own, SunTrust unfortunately has lost its way. BB&T is antiquated, and that cultural merger into, what are they calling it, Truist? I don't even know what that means. It's a dumb name, but Truist is about to emerge. The combination of BB&T and SunTrust, which will be a business culture disaster. Like, I don't want anything to do with it. I just tried to bank with SunTrust last year, and it was nearly impossible. I really wanted to bank with Atlanta's local bank. Its hometown bank, if you will. And I found it impossible to do the business with them. So I'm with Capital One, who doesn't even have a branch here, who's actually not a bad bank, but it's impossible to do business still with a bank in this virtual world without a branch. So what the hell is wrong with all the banks? And what are we going to do about it as Americans? And how bad is it going to get? We'll pick that up next. TheRealEstateExperts.com Real Estate Show. Don't go away.